What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. My name is Eric, and in today's video we're going to be installing some lowering springs on a Q50. Since I've been doing YouTube full time, I've also been kind of working on vehicles on the side. So this is actually a customer's vehicle, and you guys can see that there is a huge gap here in the front wheel. It's crazy how much room there is in there. The rear is not as bad, but it definitely would benefit from being a tad bit lower. These are the springs that I'm going to be installing today. They're RSR springs, so I have the front and rear. Now, these vehicles have a different suspension setup in the rear compared to like the G35s, 370Z, G37s. They kind of did away with the rear spring bucket, so you no longer have that. You have the spring and the shock as one unit in the rear. And on these particular vehicles, you have to actually remove the rear seats to get access to the fasteners that hold the strut assembly to the vehicle. So we have to remove the seats to do the rear. I'm going to show you guys how to do that today, but I'm also going to show you guys how to do the front as well. So I'm going to go ahead and jack up the vehicle. We'll do the front first, and then we'll go to the back. Alright, so we're going to do the passenger side first, but it's basically going to be the same on the driver's side. Now, what you want to do here is disconnect a few things before you start trying to remove the strut assembly here. So what I would first do is try to remove your ABS cables off to the side, because when you remove this spindle here, it's going to sag, and you don't want to pull on the cables too much. You also want to either unclip this clip here that holds down the brake line, or remove these two fasteners and kind of remove this bracket off to the side. So once you have disconnected those things out of the way, we're going to go ahead and remove this bracket on the bottom that kind of holds the strut to the lower control arm. You want to remove that because, in my opinion, it makes it easier to install the strut and to remove the strut. So there is a few, I believe, 14mm fasteners that are holding down this bracket here. So now that we have all of that disconnected on the bottom, we're going to go ahead and start disconnecting some things here. You can remove your upper control arm connection here. However, I don't think it's necessary. If you remove the three fasteners on the top, you should be able to wiggle the strut assembly out to the side without removing any of these things. It will make it easier if you do, but it's not necessary. So these right here are the three 12mm nuts that you need to remove. I have an extension with a swivel. It makes it easier to get these guys off. And you might drop some. Alright. So with those three nuts removed, your strut assembly here should be free. So you guys can see here that it wiggles to the side freely. So all you got to do here is just get a pry tool, finish removing the bolt that goes through the strut, and you should be able to angle it to the side and remove it like that without disconnecting the upper control arm. Now what we need to do is remove this spring from the strut assembly. What a lot of people don't realize is that this setup right here does not have a lot of spring tension on it. And what I mean by that is, if you remove this nut, the spring is not going to fly off. It doesn't have a lot of pressure on here. I've removed the nut without compressing the spring multiple times on these vehicles, and I've never had an issue with safety. If you guys want to compress the spring, you guys can go ahead and do so, but I believe that adds another step that is unnecessary. So go ahead and remove this fastener. You can compress the spring with a spring compressor or not. It will be fine. I'll show you guys how that looks here in a second. Make sure that you transfer these little rubber pieces from your old spring, because this keeps down any squeaking or noise. And in order for you to install this spring, you actually need to compress it. You don't need to compress the spring to remove the spring, but you do need to compress it to install it. So this is the spring compressor tool that I'm going to be using. So I personally would recommend this spring compressor tool over others, because it has these little safety pins so the spring doesn't like fly out. So with the spring compressed, you should be able to install your nut on here. You want to make sure that it's on there tight before you remove the spring compressor tool. But like I said, you only need the spring compressor tool to install the springs, not to remove them, because they don't have a lot of tension. So one of the springs is pretty much done. I'm gonna install it back onto the vehicle. I have the sway bar end link fastener through the shock right here. I also lined up the top 3 holes. So then now what I'll do is I'll come up here and fasten down these 3 nuts to secure everything into place. Go ahead and put your bracket that you took off back on. So just make sure you line it up correctly. It should only fit one way, just like that. So on this side, we're pretty much done. All you gotta do is put your ABS cable back on and fasten down this bracket for the brake line. Realistically speaking, you probably can get away with not removing the brake line bracket right here, and just remove your ABS cable out of the way. But like I said, it does make it a little bit easier, but it's not necessary to do this step. So with the front done, we're gonna go ahead and jump on to the rear. The rear on the Q50, as far as, you know, installing the springs or coilovers, is a little bit more tricky, because you have to remove the back seats in order to get to the fasteners that hold the strut to the body, which are in this corner. So it can be a little bit more tricky, but I'm gonna show you guys what you need to do. Starting off with the seat right here, it's pretty simple to actually remove it. There should be a little clip right in here, so you guys can see. You're gonna put your finger through that, pull out and lift up. That should unclip the bottom cushion. Alright, so pull out and then up. There you go. You do need to push your buckles through the cushion, so just kind of wiggle this out to the side. There you go. There you go. So I'm gonna set this off to the side to give us more room. So with the bottom cushion out, you guys can see these clips that I was talking about. You're gonna put your finger through there, pull on that, then you'll push your buckles through the holes and pull out. At this point, what you want to do is you want to remove a few 14mm fasteners that hold the back part of the seat on. So there is one 14mm fastener there. There is another 14 right here, another one right there, and then another one right there in the corner. Got the back support here removed. It's gonna be held on at these clips right here, kind of like hangers, I guess you can call them. So they're gonna be hooked on right here. So what you want to do is you want to put your hand either in the middle here of the headrest and try to lift up with your hand while you have your other hand on the bottom lifting it up, or you can just try to push all the way up from the bottom and it'll come out that way as well. So the next thing that we need to do is remove those metal brackets there. Behind this bracket you'll find the fasteners that we need to remove in order for us to drop the strut assembly. There is 4 10mm fasteners right here that you can see that you need to remove. However, there is 2 additional ones that are going to the side right here. However, as you guys can see, there's not a lot of working room right there. So it's best for you guys to unclip these interior pieces off so that you can see the 2 fasteners that you need to remove. All you gotta do is just kind of pull it out a little bit. You don't need to remove it completely. Once you do that, you should have enough access to remove those 2 fasteners. So with this kind of pushed off to the side, you'll have access to the 2 fasteners that you need to remove. I already went ahead and did that. The only thing left to do is remove these 4 and remove this cover. That gives us enough working room here to remove these fasteners. I believe these should be 3 12mm. So for the passenger side, there is actually less clearance than on the driver's side. So I would recommend for you guys to actually just use a regular 12mm wrench like I have here to remove these guys. Once you guys remove these 3 nuts, you can go ahead and jack up the vehicle and remove the strut assembly. So now that we have the rear wheel removed, you're gonna go ahead and remove this 17mm fastener that goes through the knuckle here. Once you do this, you can go ahead and push down on this suspension component here and push outwards to remove the strut assembly. These fasteners are on there pretty tight, so if you don't have an electric impact and you're gonna do this job, I would definitely reconsider it, because this will make your life 10 times easier when you guys are doing this job. So go ahead and invest in yourself and buy some tools. Sometimes these guys get a little stuck, so go ahead and get like a pry tool and just kind of move this down like this, and this whole assembly should come out just like that. So here we have the rear strut assembly. What I'm gonna do next is compress this spring and remove the old spring and install the replacement spring. It's pretty much the exact same thing that we did to the front, except we're doing it to the rear. So make sure that you guys kind of mark down the strut hat before you remove it, so that when you put it back on, everything lines up perfectly. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this off camera here, put it back on the vehicle, and see how much it lowers it. Alright, so to install the strut assembly back on, it can be a little bit challenging if you are doing it alone. The problem that you're going to run into is that you won't be able to align the holes without first putting the bolt through the bottom here on the strut. Now you can't do that unless you push the suspension down, and you can't do that if you have only two hands. So you are going to need more leverage, so that's why I have this pole right here. I'm going to put right there, and I'm going to go ahead and push down, and I'm going to go ahead and line everything up that way. Alright guys, so it took me a little bit longer than I really wanted to install these lowering springs on the Q50, but it does look quite a bit more lower than when it first got here. It's a good ride height. The owner's pretty happy with that, so I think it's going to lower down a little bit more as the springs settle.
This is going to wrap up the end of this video. If you guys did find it entertaining and useful, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Also, comment down below what you guys think about these lowering springs. I'll see you guys all in my next one. Peace out.